Hello, NBA fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA the week that was. I hope you're enjoying this series, and we're well into it, so I'm obviously going to finish it. Today, I'll be discussing the Houston Rockets and what went well for them this year and what could really be worked on moving forward. So, without further ado, let's get right into the next episode of the NBA the week that was. Let's start off by talking what the Houston Rockets did this past offseason. In this offseason, it really felt like the Rockets just took another direction. They moved on from Chris Paul after another second-round defeat in this playoffs and acquired another ball-dominant point guard in Russell Westbrook. I personally questioned this trade because I felt that Westbrook and Harden, their games won't work well together. Both of them like to be the most dominant players on their team, and they always require the ball. So unless they stagger their minutes, which didn't end up happening, that rotation of that team of Harden and Westbrook together won't work. Westbrook needs the ball to drive to the rim and kick it out to shooters. Harden needs the ball to, of course, do his thing with his step backs and everything, just his offensive game. So that really wasn't going to work. However, there were some positives in the Rockets this season. Towards the trade deadline, there was a trade where they traded Clint Capella, their franchise center, for Robert Covington. I also again question that move because with Clint Capella gone, they had no player above 6'10", 6'11". They had no center. They were going to go the full small ball lineup. At first, that worked out really well, so let's focus on that now. With PJ Tucker, Robert Covington, Danuel House, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, that lineup is a menacing three-point lineup. And besides Westbrook, all of those guys are really, really good three-point shooters. And because they're so small relative to the big men of opposing teams, they could run the floor fast and play that transition offense that Mike D'Antoni loves to run, as we saw in the Phoenix Suns 7 seconds or less offense back in 2008 when the Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire duo was big time in the West. So that sort of worked out because PJ Tucker, the reason that worked out at the start was PJ Tucker's a big guy, big in the sense that he can really cover positions 1 through 5, I believe. He's a really, really good defender. And Harden is underrated as a post defender. Danuel House is 6'7", Robert Covington is 6'7", so they were able to, occasionally take on those big men, on the defensive end. So they beat some good teams. I believe that they beat the Lakers with that small ball lineup. So while that transition to small ball really, it was interesting. I'll go into it more later. Right now, I want to focus on what the Rockets did well this year, and that was just the play of James Harden. That guy, man, he's just next level scorer. He just continues to support historic numbers on the scoring, and I don't know how he does it, but he's not the most athletic guy. But he just manages a way to, draw fouls. That's obviously, I feel, his biggest strength. People hate it, but it's just his genius to, average those 13 or 14 free throws a game, which is just crazy these days. How does he do that? It's just his genius, And not only is his only way to score getting those free throws, but it's also the great three-point shooting ability he has as an on-ball scorer. His step back is just deadly, and overall he's just a dead eye from three and just an offensive enigma. On the other end, while Russell Westbrook couldn't gel too well with Harden, on those days where Westbrook was feeling it, he was that triple-double monster we saw back in Oklahoma City Thunder without Kevin Durant. On their nights, they were unstoppable, the Rockets. However, as I'll go into later, inconsistency really plagued them this year. Moving on, let's talk about what really didn't work well for the Rockets this year. As I mentioned, one of their biggest issues that plagued them was inconsistency. As I said, when the Rockets could figure out how to work between Capella, Westbrook, and Harden, arguably a top 5 team in the league because they have the offensive talent, of course, with Westbrook and Harden, but then they could manage the defensive end with PJ Tucker and Capella anchoring the defense. However, those nights came very rarely because of the fact that Westbrook just couldn't gel with the Rockets. While Chris Paul, he's a decent three-point shooter, Westbrook has never been known as a good three-point shooter. His biggest skill is his slashing ability to just explode off the dribble and just dunk the ball with ferocity. However, with Clint Capella in the paint, James Harden dominating the ball, Westbrook was pushed away to a number 2 role, waiting for those off the catch threes, which he's never been good at. So it never really worked out for the Rockets, which is why they ended up moving on from Clint Capella, which I believe is a bad decision. As a Hawks fan, I'm happy. I really like Clint Capella for the Hawks. However, it really wasn't a good decision for the Rockets because he was their defensive anchor, and now all that onus goes on to PJ Tucker, and he really can't handle it, as we saw towards the latter end of the season before, of course, the suspension happened. As I said, the first 5 or 6 games in the small ball lineup really worked well because teams couldn't figure out how to guard the offense of that really fast-paced team because they were all so small and their big men would get left behind. However, eventually teams figured it out. That's what happens in the NBA. The coaches, the players, they work together, figure out a strategy to how to stop the Rockets. And that we could see that like in the few games that led up to the suspension, the Rockets were getting clamped up by teams, and if they're getting clapped up on offense, their defense is going to be bad anyways because they're all so small. So the small ball lineup has been mediocre. Again, it's just the same thing with the Rockets. On their night, that small ball lineup can be crazy. On their night with Capella, Westbrook, and Harden, they could have been the best team in the NBA. However, that very rarely came, once in every 5 games. And that won't cut it, especially in Orlando. So I feel with this suspension, the Rockets should have gotten the time to, really figure it out. Do we want to go with the small ball route, or do we want to figure something out that, we can survive in a playoff series against, like, let's say the Lakers? Because it just won't work, if PJ Tucker has to guard Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard. I don't see a guy on the Rockets that can guard both of them. And then, of course, if PJ Tucker's on LeBron, then Anthony Davis can just wreak havoc in the paint. And then there's other teams like the Nuggets, the Mavericks. Nikola Jokic and Kristaps are a different breed. They can shoot as well, and it's just, I don't know how small ball is going to work. I'm going to be honest with you. So I feel that this is probably the last year for like Mike D'Antoni, especially the head coach of the Rockets. His contract is expiring. They had that chance in 2018, but with Chris Paul out, they couldn't make it to the finals. And now it doesn't really, I don't think the Rockets inspire confidence. So unless they're able to figure it out with the small ball lineup, I don't see the Rockets doing so well in Orlando. And I just feel that due to the inconsistency of the Rockets, a rebuild's coming in the next 2 or 3 years. Harden, he's going to realize I won't be able to win my championship here. He's going to move on, and I think I don't see such a bright future for the Rockets. And with that, we wrap up the 11th episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA the week that was. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like down below, and if you're new on this channel, subscribe with notifications on as well. If you have any feedback for me, whether it's positive or constructive criticism, I will gladly accept it in the comment section down below. I'll catch you guys in the next episode of the NBA the week that was. See ya.